Who needs to be a professional?
Just two dudes being bros watching anime and talking about it.
Just guys being dudes, man.
Yeah. Just dudes being bros. Just bros being homies. Just homies kissing each other goodnight. That's all.
Dun dun dun. Da da dun da da da. Da 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 da.
Bum bum.
Bum 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 ba. Da 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 da. We should have an Ahegals theme. I don't know what it is.
We should.
We need to figure that out. We gotta suss out how we're gonna make an Ahegals theme. But hello, ladies, germs, and everyone in between. Welcome back to Ahegals.
Welcome
Uh,
back.
we're vibing today. I'm Kathleen, and I'm here with
I'm Renee.
the lovely Renee. Yes, Renee, so vibrant and cool and hidden in the shadows over there. But today's episode, we're talking about Fena, the pirate princess, a apparently a Crunchyroll original. I don't know
And
if
Adult Swim.
and Adult Swim collaborative original series.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought that was weird.
I did too. I was like, what?
Like I knew Crunchyroll.
Weird.
I knew Crunchyroll did originals, but I
Hmm.
think I knew that Adult Swim has done one or two, but I've never watched any of them. And so
Yeah.
so I didn't know what to think.
Me neither, honestly.
Um,
Because this anime is new to both of us. This one is a recent one that just aired October 2021.
yes.
Yeah. Not to date ourselves in this video or anything. I mean, it's 2022 right now, but early 2022.
This was weird, but it was a good choice. I really liked
Hmm.
that we did this one. Fena is the story of a young girl who becomes an orphan after her father's ship is, I guess, attacked. We don't know that it's attacked until later, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the first episode, they show the ship is on fire and people are fighting.
Okay, yeah, I guess the
Yeah.
fighting. I just remember it being on fire, and I was like, "What? The ship's going down, boys."
I just recall like hearing like the sword fighting in the background and people yelling
Uh,
or shouting or whatever.
you right. I missed that then. But yeah, so she's an orphan girl, Fena H- Houtman,
Oh,
Houtman,
Houtman?
Houtman, and this takes place. It's an alternate history, like fantasy. Uh,
In the real world.
yeah, it's based off of like places in the real world. It's based off the world as we know it, but like different. Like places are
Yeah.
countries are islands, and everybody floats around on boats and stuff. Um, but she's raised on this island as like, I guess, not necessarily a slave, because she grows up to be this beautiful young woman, right? Who
Yeah.
like is going off to the highest bidder, and she's a strong independent young lady, and she's like, "No, stinky."
I don't want to be bought by some old fart and
So
let him have his way with me.
when he's got three other women in his bed, gross. Ew.
Nasty.
Stinky. Um, and then she gets she makes an attempt, being the little spitfire that she is. She has a plan to escape, and the plan is slowly beginning to backfire when these adorable old men come and save her.
They're so bombastic.
Oh, they're so cute. We'll talk about them in a minute.
I love.
They break her out, and she finds her way to this island, the Goblin Island, and on the Goblin Island is the high priest, and he tells her about um this adventure, this hidden message left by her father that only she has the answer to.
Yeah. He like brings up the day that the ship was attacked. Um and what like the legacy, I guess, that her father left behind for her.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that the series about is about that adventure and like her trying to figure out what the family mystery is and what that's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and it's it's a good show.
Okay, so I actually I agree that it was overall pretty decent, but I have a lot to complain about.
Yes. Ooh! We love different opinions on the podcast. I'm so excited.
Oh, dude. Okay, okay. So like, overall it's really lighthearted and quite enjoyable. Like it's I don't know, there's just a lot of like I don't know, heartwarming things that pop up in the show. But for me, like the show the show wasn't very emotionally impactful for me.
Mm,
And I think that's how I judge whether or not I really enjoy something
mm,
is like does it really stir up a lot of emotions for me? And this show was like it was very average on the surface, never got too deep into anything. And so it didn't really stir up too many like strong emotions in me. And so I think that's where my complaint is cuz like they had a lot of really cool concepts and just like little historical tidbits that they would like throw at you and that would be really really interesting, but then they don't really go that much deeper into detail into any of the stuff, which that's where my complaint is cuz they introduce all these different interesting things, but then they don't do much with it. And
mm-hmm.
that's where I was just like kind of disappointed, but it was still an enjoyable show for me.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
totally fair. And you know
Yeah.
what? There's even a little voice in the back of my head while I was watching this. I was like, this is really light. They're not putting a lot
Yeah,
of detail in here.
very.
Um, they have, I guess, what they need. And there are some points where I'm like, this is quite a jump, and I wish there was like an
Mhm.
opportunity for them to dig more into it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. And
Yeah.
I think like it makes for a really good open and shut story.
Yes. It
It's
kind of felt like I don't know, it felt like they had ideas, but they were only given 1 season to work with the good ideas that they had, so that's why they introduced concepts or just, like, some stuff, but couldn't go too far into it because they only had 1 season to work with it.
that's fair. I
Yeah, I feel like if it was a 2 season show, it would have been, like, really, really good.
mm, I from and I don't have any like anything that directly corrupt.
What?
I
What?
just saw something. Hold on. Um, let me finish my thought. I distracted myself.
Okay.
I have nothing to like directly corroborate this claim, but I've really liked any shows that I've watched on Crunchyroll. I love going into the comments after I finished it,
Uh-huh.
and seeing like conversations that have there, and uh, it wasn't so explicit in the last episode comments section, but someone was like, "Is that it? Like, is there more?" Or like someone else was like,
Mhm.
tell me that this thing has spoil." A big spoiler that I don't think we're probably gonna touch too much on, but
Ooh.
like she remembers and all this stuff, and someone was like, "No, the director came out and said that is the story that he had, and that's it. That's what he wanted, and
Mm.
it came out just the way he wanted it to." And I thought that was really interesting, and
That is interesting.
I clicked like because I have the I have the ever knowledgeable Wikipedia page for Fena Pirate Princess open right now. And I went to go look at the director whose name is Kazuto Nakazawa, and that's what made me gasp right now is taking a quick look at his just general bio. Uh
Mm.
Japanese character designer and director of numerous anime and video games. Also goes by the pseudonym Takeshi Tsuji, which is strange. Why would you have two different names. That's fine, but it's just that's interesting. He designed characters for Samurai Champloo. That was one of his many things that he
Oh,
worked on, which I totally thought of one of the characters. I was like, he kind of reminds me of Gene, Yuki Maru, but
yes.
also Shitan a little bit. Was like a little bit more Mugen, but not quite.
Mm.
And then he also animated. This is what made me. He also he also animated the Johan directed music video for the Linkin Park song "Breaking the Habit." Bro,
What?
bro, I fucking love that music video.
I don't know it.
Oh my god, it's such a
The
uh,
disappointment in your side, just
n-
like,
no, it just makes me happy. Like, cause like I'm just like yes, it
okay.
it's a music video that like I saw as a child early in the morning, getting ready for school, flipping on MTV really quick to just like wake my brain up with mindless television, and
Mm.
that music video was one of the ones that played a lot. Uh,
Oh.
and it's such a like an emotional story. The animation is like really grimy and kind of gross. Um,
Mm.
but it's really beautiful at the same time. Like it's super emotional. It works really well with like Linkin Park and like just the energy that that song has. Oh, finally knowing who the animator is.
That's really cool, actually. Like,
Oh,
I didn't know any of that stuff.
oh man.
I didn't even know he was connected to Samurai Champloo.
Yeah, that
Samurai Champloo is fucking awesome. We should do
yeah.
that one.
We should do that one next.
We should do that one. We should do that next. Let's do it.
Oh, okay. Well, you heard it here first, folks. We haven't even talked about this anime yet, but we've already decided on what the next anime is going to be.
That's funny.
Samurai Champloo is an absolute classic. It is such a good series.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
New
wow.
job is for the music.
Rest in peace. Happy belated birthday, Nujabes. His
Happy
birthday.
belated birthday, Seba June.
He yeah, he would have turned like 48, I think, a couple days ago. Or like
Wow.
the beginning of the month or something like that. Fantastic DJ, fantastic musician,
Mhm, mhm.
beautiful fucking soundtrack.
Yeah. I have a new job as Pandora station that I like listening to often. That
Yes.
music is so good.
So good. It's so relaxing. It is
Mhm.
relaxing, but then he also has such a great way of like evoking a lot of melancholy, like mixing in with just like deep heart emotions.
Yes.
You know. But anyway, Pirate Princess.
Yes. Fena Pirate Princess.
um
You know what? Sorry. One of the things that I'm kind of confused about, like why is she called a pirate princess? I understand why she's called a princess, but what the pirate part is not relevant to her, I feel like. There are other characters in the show that are pirates that are antagonists, but her and the fucking ninja squad, they're not like the goblin squad.
uh
They're not pirates, so that's where I'm confused. I'm just like, I don't know.
you know,
It's a dumb hang up to have, but
you know what? And you're not the only one. That was one of the comments I saw a lot of too on Crunchyroll.
okay.
Where it's like princess, okay, pirate wear. Um,
Yeah, pirate wear. Cause like so my first cause like I didn't look into the show at all before watching it. And
mhm,
so like my first like thought just reading the title is like, okay, so she's gonna be like a pirate, like she is actually going to be a pirate on the sea, and maybe she finds out for some reason that she is a princess,
mhm.
and that's how like the plot goes. But no, it totally went a completely different direction, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, what's going on? I mean, like, I like it, but what is this? This is different, not
Yeah,
what I was expecting, which
and
I guess is a good thing.
yeah, surprise, right?
Yeah.
Disappointment.
A little bit of disappointment. I think that's another reason why I like not a negative view of the anime, because I did enjoy it.
Mm.
Overall, I did enjoy it, but I just have a lot of hangups. I
That's
guess.
that's valid though. I fucking feel that. Well, um yeah, I was also thinking that, right? I came into it with the idea that like literally that it was just going to be a pirate slice of life. That's what I was
Yeah.
expecting, right? Is just this the lady captain and she's so spunky and cool and she's a princess because she's actually a nice pirate. Like that's what I was thinking, right? I was like, yeah, we're gonna. Little did I realize, like looking at the fucking images of it, there's like a bunch of samurai behind her, like not even
Yeah,
registering that
like,
her crew
what?
is like ninja geared up to the nines. Um,
Uh,
yeah, it uh, I don't know, something about the title evoked like a completely different belief as to what it was going to be. And that seems to be
mhm.
I mean, just for us, right? That's what
Yeah,
happened. We were like, "Oh,
yeah.
pirate princess, what does that mean to us?"
And like
Um,
what you said, people in the comments also.
yeah, but there were plenty of other people that were like, "Oh, pirate princess where?" And like
Yeah.
it made me think about because I wanted to explore that more, right? I was like, yeah, no, that's fair. Definitely I mean throughout finding out who Fena is, you're like, oh,
Mhm,
okay, yeah, princess. Princess makes sense.
mhm.
Pirate doesn't. You know what
Yeah.
also doesn't make sense?
Ninjas.
Well, with pirate is Japanese depiction of a pirate. What is that?
Ah.
Did, did,
Ah.
right? So I was caught up on that. And so like the Japanese name for this is Kaizoku Ojo.
Mhm.
What is that? I don't know what that means. Does that is that a
Well, Ojo
specific
is princess.
It is
Kaizoku,
princess.
hang on. Let me just Kai fuck Zoku. Pirate,
It is
sea
pirate.
robber, buccaneer, freebooter, piracy.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah. Pirate princess
Okay.
is yeah what it.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just the relationship between the Japanese and like our depiction of like our internal depiction of a pirate, I don't feel like meshes very well. And so I wonder if that not necessarily a translation thing, like obviously the Japanese know what pirates are, but like
Yeah,
I mean even in like Fena's design, like in the clothes that she wears
yeah.
after she's on the ship, you're like, okay, those are piratey girl clothes. Yeah, sure.
Maybe it was more like because they're out on the sea. They have actual pirates, so the entire crew for the Rumble Rose,
Hmm.
they are pirates. They look
Those are
like pirates.
pirates.
They're definitely pirates. Um, so it's for me, it's like I don't know. Like they definitely seem to know what pirates are, or at least what their imagery for a pirate matches what I imagine a pirate would be. And Fena's clothing, yes, matches, but uh, the reasoning to call them pirates doesn't line up in my head. I don't know. I don't think they even came up with any reasoning at all. And they didn't even refer to themselves as pirates, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, they're never referred to as pirates. I I think too that like right, so these are like all of the trailing thoughts I had because I also was like, why call her a pirate, right? A lot
Hmm.
of people watching this show, whether they enjoy it or not, have been like, why you call her a pirate? And yeah, I think the biggest pull for that title is just the fact that like it's this alternate universe thing is like very like pirate central. You would have to or sailing central, right? Like you have to sail to get anywhere, right? Like
Hmm.
there's mentions of like Germany and France
In
um
England.
and England and to get to any of those places you have to sail there and they're like all separate, right? Like Germany is really far from France, like they have to travel between those two points at one specific time.
Hmm.
There's another island that they go to. I don't even remember the name of it, but like some of the still background shots that they show are like people in like headscarves or like saris, right? So like you're like, okay, this is
Hmm.
like India or something.
Yeah.
Um, and they had to sail to this place too, right? So like sailing is a really big part of this story.
Yeah.
Um, and aside from the fact that like the pirates typically have the association of being criminals, right? And so I think you could technically say she becomes a criminal when she escapes being bought.
From Shangri-La. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense when you put it that way. That
Right.
makes sense because like the whole royal guard or whatever were after her.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah. Which okay, a different thing that I am also confused about. Like they show her very first episode, they show her in this like castle-y type building and I don't understand like why is she there? Who took her in? And why is she for sale? Like okay, for the culture of the island that they kind of show, it makes sense that like selling women is part of that island culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um and selling them for their virginity. Um but like who's doing this? They don't really set that. And so she's just in this castle and I'm like, why though? How did she get there? Like
Yeah.
what's going on? I don't understand. Like I don't know, they kind of for me another like this is a hang up of mine. They didn't really set some backstory for certain situations. They didn't really seem to set that up very well for me. And like even the old men that come and save her, like
Oh.
she has a flashback of their faces when they're not old men, when they were younger and she knew them when she was a child, or she's still a child, but a even younger child. But it's like, how did she know them? She knows their name, but they didn't tell us like why she knew them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, what's going on? I don't understand.
Yeah. It's I don't want to like because that's totally fair. That's such a fair like these are all very fair critiques of this. Absolutely. And I have through the entirety of watching this have just chalked it up to uh the fantasy, the pirates, magic and shit and this and that. And
You don't need to know who they were before she knew who they were. You just need to know she knows them now and that they're good and
right.
they're on her side and that they'll help move the story along.
Right. My
Mm,
only assumption with all of that is like yeah, exactly what you said, right? Like it's no surprise that she washes ashore onto this island called Shangri-La and it appears to be this like really depraved island where like
mm,
usual pirate shit, right? Like there's pubs, not pubs, this bars everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah, pubs, but like bars and like there's ladies of the night everywhere and they're all over the
Hmm.
place and like this tiny room that like Fana seems to be like not trapped in, but she seems to be living out of is like part of this huge building
Hmm.
which I would guess is like a commonplace because she's an orphan, right? Like especially in the
Yeah.
synopsis, it's like she's an orphan. You're like, okay, and they don't put a lot of emphasis on the fact that she's an orphan, but you're like, yeah, okay,
No.
like she doesn't know her mother and her dad dies on the ship. That's the first thing we see.
Hmm.
Um, and so I mean, she washes ashore, right? And she's a kid, so you're like, oh, and a girl. They're like, well, let's let's slave this one up. We're gonna
Yeah.
make her work until
Yeah.
she's usable,
And
right?
they do like they in the very first episode they really emphasize the fact that she looks different from
Mhm.
everybody else. Like her hair is like this really really light bleach blonde and her eyes are super blue and her skin is really really white. And they call her like the white marginal.
Yeah, that's a fucking weird name too.
It is a weird name, like
It's
why
such a weird
that?
name. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. But yeah, so like she's like highly valued for her looks and she is beautiful. So like she's really highly valued, she's a virgin, she's going to be going up for sale, she's worth a lot of money And the fact that she dodges being bought, now that I really think about it, and she escapes and is on the run from them, that makes a lot of sense why she would be called a pirate.
Yeah.
Because there's also Captain Abel, or, well, maybe not Captain. Colonel, he's a colonel.
He's
Colonel Abel, who's like part of the fucking Navy, who is after her, but he's also after her for very personal reasons.
I know, he's gross, dude.
He is gross.
Abel's
Actually,
so gross.
I like his character. I found his character to
Absolutely.
be the most interesting out of everybody on the show. He is the most interesting character to me because of his backstory and why he's chasing after Fena. Not only like because for the law that she broke, I guess, but also for his very selfish
Attachment to her.
desire. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was also okay. So one of the things that I was confused about is like, this is a spoiler, I guess.
Yeah. Go for it.
But he knew Fena's mother.
Mhm.
And he loved Fena's mother. He knew her, and he has like an obsession with her. And finding out like that Fena exists, pretty much, and like just knowing that she's out there and that she's the one that he's got to go after anyway. I don't know. He like becomes obsessed with catching her.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I was still kind of confused, at least in the beginning. Like at the very end, it made a bit more sense. But in the beginning, where you're just like, I don't understand why he's going after her, I was confused because I was like, does he want to bone her? Or does he like see her as like his daughter in some weird way? Because and that's where like the line got kind of hazy for me. And then it got cleared up because like when he looked at Fena, all he could see was her mother, and that was basically all he could see.
Mhm.
But I actually really liked his character for the backstory that they show of like how he got to know Fena's mother, and I guess why he loved her, because she was like the only person that she was his only friend.
Loser. What a fucking loser.
Fucking loser. Um, and yeah, and they just hung out together as kids all the time. And I actually looked on the Wikipedia page for the show, but it said when it described Fena's mom that Fena and Abel were lovers. On the Wikipedia page, that's what it said. And I was like,
Wait,
were they
what?
though?
Were they
Yeah, I was like,
actually?
but were they though? Because like it was obvious that he loved her, but I don't know if she loved him back in the same way. Yeah, and so I was just like, I don't know. And something else that I found really interesting about the show is like the bad guy gets what he wants at the end.
Dude, you're tipping into a lot of like what really like stole my heart with this show. Um, if we want to talk about that, if we want to
Yes,
dip
please, let's
toes into
talk
that.
about it. Yeah,
Um,
let's wiggle our toes in this fresh water.
because again, Renee has so many like things to poke holes into the show, and absolutely right, correct in every regard. Like there's a lot of it that doesn't get explained, and something I realized while watching is something I would typically pick up on and also be upset about.
Mm.
But there were other parts to this that just swept me off my feet, and I didn't give a fuck about anything else at that point.
Tell me what swept you off your feet.
Okay, let me just premise this really
Okay.
quick.
Yeah.
Show you how much I love this show.
Yes, please.
It has very quickly taken the solid number 2 spot as my top favorite
Whoa.
anime.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay.
So
I'm
it's
sorry, I'm, like, ripping it a new one.
are you kidding me? You should. You absolutely should. You can't love something and not shit on it too, right? Like that's how I live my life, you know? Not everything is infallible. Like you have to understand that there are like The Room. Room is probably directed by Tommy Wiseau, not Room, not the other one, not the sad child abuse one. Um,
Oh
but
god.
The Room by Tommy Wiseau, I fucking love that because it's trashy, but there's also such I'm totally off topic, but there's such genuine like love and like passion put into that.
Is there though?
Tommy Wiseau wanted so badly to be an actor and was constantly shut down because he's fucking
Aw.
weird, and he ended up making his own movie. Like, right? He made his dream
Mm.
come true on his own, and like that
That is
in and of
admirable.
itself, yeah, is really cool. And like I hate using the American dream, but high key, low key, like the American dream come to life, right? I
Mm.
fucking hate using that, but like that paints such a specific image, and that's the type of image I want to paint for it. You take
Yeah.
everything else into consideration, how Tommy Wiseau is gross and weird, um, and was really shitty to his cast and crew. Yeah, it's trash. It's a fucking
Mm.
funny movie too. It's a terrible movie. A lot of people
Oh my
can't
god,
watch
yeah.
it.
Is this still free on YouTube?
Maybe. I hope so.
I think you showed it to me on YouTube.
Maybe. I know he has a YouTube series right now that I keep meaning to
What?
watch, and for some reason it's way harder to consume than The Room is. So,
Nice.
but Fena has like taken number two spot. It shot up through. I've always been like, yeah, Nana's my favorite, and then I'm like, I don't know what's after that. But like Fena like
Mm.
has taken that spot. I think because um and why what I wanted to start what you were starting to dive into was like there is this like level of darkness underneath the bright adventure, like we're out at sea and look at all these colorful different places that we're at and all of these interesting people, right? There's this
Mhm.
like layer of darkness, of like secrets hidden and like
Yeah,
unknowns and stuff like that.
so many secrets.
Things that are just kind of creepy and underlying, um, that I really admire. I think it wasn't as fleshed out. That darkness isn't as fleshed out as I would like it to be.
Yeah.
Just like anything else, but I think because it's so balanced, right? That like I'm not getting as much as I want out of this specific thing, but that's the same with everything else. So I'm like, okay, I think it's balanced,
Mm.
um, with the dark undertones, with the romance, with the explanation for things, right? Like I'm just not getting everything that I want to have like it's a cohesive enough story, but to get all of the rich detail that I want out of this series, I'm not getting it from all of these different parts of it. So I'm like, okay,
Mm.
you're just trying to tell me a story. I get it now. Like that's what you want. Um, an argument I always have for that kind of thing is like, you didn't give us enough. It's like, okay, well, go write fan fiction about it. Because I might go write fan fiction about it. We'll see what happens.
Ooh.
Ooh. Um, but yeah, the dark themes, the dark undertones for this show, I really, I don't know. There's always something creeping
Mm.
along in here.
Yeah,
Um,
there is.
yeah. Like
And
and with Abel specifically, right?
mhm,
Abel, I totally agree that Abel is probably one of the better characters in this show.
mhm.
Um, and for like more definitive context, because we haven't really introduced any of the characters yet,
Yeah.
there's Fena, right? And she's just this like unworldly, beautiful young lady. And she's just bright. She's bright and she's um like aggressive, like she's unapologetically her sweet bumbling self, right? Like
Mhm.
she doesn't quite know what she wants to do, but she's loud about like I'm gonna pick like I want to live the life I want to live, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever that is, it should be my choice because it's my life.
Mhm.
Um, and she meets the old dudes she meets, Salmon and Otto, are like these retired swashbucklers. Like they were fighters back in their day. Like Renee already said, they don't really have a lot of background that they're given,
Mm,
and also no context as to like what the relationship between them and Fena is. You might like think that, oh, maybe they served her father at one point, or they like knew of her father and like weren't on the ship that like took his life or whatever.
yeah.
Something like that, because that one flip of a flashback you get, she's this tiny little thing. And
Yeah.
where they're at doesn't look like Shangri-La, right? Which is the
No.
island that she ends up on. So you're like, okay.
Okay. You know what? Now that I think about it, if if I'm remembering this correctly, like where they're at kind of it kind of looked like the the mansion that Abel grew up at a little bit. Like
That
cuz it showed her like in a garden, and like
mhm.
that gardeny part shows up in Abel's flashbacks, and I'm just like, that they kind of look the same, but they're probably different locations. Maybe I'm connecting things that are unrelated. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. And that again, I can totally that I think you're, as far as logic's going, you're like going in the right direction. But then you start thinking about details like um and we're getting into the heart of this now. Sorry, big fucking spoilers for
Yeah, big
this pretty
spoilers.
new show. But
Go watch the show.
please go watch the show. It's only 12 episodes.
Yeah,
I watched it in
it's
a day.
short.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, 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 you can
really
watch it in a
short.
day.
Um but when so Fena's mother, Helena,
Mhm.
leaves the castle grounds where she comes from, which we don't know what Helena's status is in the kingdom, right? In the hierarchy. We just know that she happens
Yeah.
to live on the palace grounds. Maybe she's a slave girl or something, who knows.
Mm,
Um but she elopes, right? She runs away with Franz. And then she's found and comes back, but we don't hear anything of Franz. But we've also seen
yeah.
flashbacks of like Franz in a dark room, like by a fireplace or whatever, like watching Fena dance, right? So like Fena had
Mhm.
to have been raised
By
um,
Franz.
by Franz somewhere else. You
Yeah.
also find out that Fena is big spoilers. Fena is the king's daughter.
Yes.
That Franz isn't even her biological father.
No.
Um,
I mean, a question that I have.
yes.
So, Fena is the king's daughter. Does that make Abel her half brother?
Yes.
Okay, cuz like cuz this was the episode that I was rewatching right before you called me, and I was cuz this is where I was like, wait a second, did I make an assumption that is incorrect?
Mm-mm.
Cuz cuz I cuz he says that he was told that he is a prince, but he'll never be king.
Mm-hmm.
But it never outright says that like the king is his father. Um so I was like, is it possible to be a prince and never mind. Never mind. Never mind. That's stupid. That's stupid. I just realized what I was saying. No, he's totally the king's son. Maybe he's like an illegitimate son or something like that, and that's why
Yeah,
he could never be king. But
exactly.
yeah, but yeah, Fena is definitely his half sister.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
like I think that was like the first definitive detail that I was like, "Oh, this is dark." Because but
yeah,
at that point, um uh, Abel throughout the series is chasing Fena, right? I'm trying to like describe the characters as I'm going. But like
yeah.
um Abel we Abel is interesting in that he's used like there's misguidance as to like who the bad guy is,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Trying to find Fena because there's a lot of them. There's
mhm.
several people who are trying to find her. There's the guy that bought her right at the beginning.
Yeah,
And then he gets pulled into working with this
Abel.
badass group of pirates
Ah, yeah.
on this ship called the
Rumble
Rumble
Rose.
Rose, and they're just all these beautiful, gorgeous women that are pirates, and they're so cool, and they're all just different shapes and
They're
sizes, and they're
really cool.
oh, I loved the Rumble Rose pirates, and it's such a shame you don't get a lot of screen time with
I
them,
know,
but
I know.
they're really cool.
Dude, okay, so this is also kind of like another spoiler, I'm sorry. But like the episode where their ship blows up to smithereens, and like the just like that scene where O'Malley, the head of the Rumble Rose, she's standing on the ship and her ship is fucking being obliterated with one big motherfucking cannon
Oh my
that's
god.
meant to tear down like castle walls
Mhm.
from afar.
Mhm.
It's a powerful, strong cannon. One shot blows her ship to fucking smithereens, and just like you see her standing in like the middle of her boat, and she is fucking pissed off.
Betrayed. They're
Yeah, she's
mad.
betrayed. She's fucking pissed, and like the look on her face is really, really good. And like, actually, one of my favorite parts about the series is how well it's like animated. Like the
Oh.
design of
Mhm.
everything is so beautiful,
Yeah.
and it's just really well animated. And like O'Malley, so she has like she's got an eye patch, which is like yes, a classic pirate thing,
Arg.
and like technically the reason why pirates have eye patches is so that like you look out into the sunlight with one eye, and then when you go below deck, because there's no light below deck, you take off that eye patch and you like can see in the dark, because that eye has not been exposed to bright light, and you won't have to take time to adjust to seeing in the dark.
Uh-huh.
So that's why they have eye patches. But she's just got this big fucking scar going down that eye. And like her eye patch gets blown off her face, and you just see her angry and pissed, and just and like her ship blows up around her, and then she's gone, and like that's the last you see of her. And I was in that scene, I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, she's gonna be the new big bad antagonist. Like she's gonna survive, she's gonna live, she's gonna come back twice as evil because of what happened to her, and that never happened.
It
So I was
never
like,
happens.
no. Oh, that would have been so cool if she came back as like the big bad.
I
uh
I like that's something I loved about this show too, right? Like from the get-go, right? We kind of feel misdirected, right? You're like, "Oh, it's a pirate princess." And you get a completely different like what you imagine going into this show is going to be completely different from what you see. And that continues to happen as you're watching the show, right? There's different levels of bad guys. The Rumble Roses are so fucking cool, right? Um so yeah, that there's the guy that buys Fena. He gets pulled in by Rumble Rose, but also Abel. Abel's like kind of the one you realize is pulling all of the strings.
mhm,
But he uses the Rumble Roses to try to get Fena back, right? By force, by physical force.
mhm,
He isn't successful, so he gets whatever thrown off by Abel. Um, Rumble Rose crew ends up being successful in capturing Fena at one point. And they bring her back to Abel, and you're like, oh, okay. Abel's like we've seen Abel before then, but we're like, okay,
mhm.
so like he's after Fana, like he needs her for some reason, and like he's obviously super vague about like why he wants her.
Yeah.
You would think, right, because most of what we've seen so far is she is beautiful and sought after by men,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So you're like, "Oh, okay, he wants her as like a sexual thing or whatever." Or maybe
Yeah.
because she's a criminal and he wants to like take her down, but like that obviously doesn't seem like the case. He's very
Mm-mm.
obsessed with her.
Yeah.
Um
He definitely wants to possess her.
yeah, exactly. He wants her in like within arm's reach. He
Yeah.
needs to have her nearby
Yeah. He
physically.
wants to like own her, possess her, to have her, and
Um
just yeah.
and it will take it he will do anything necessary to have her in his clutches because
Yeah.
that oh, that moment when that Renee was just describing he as soon as he's done with Captain O'Malley and the Rumble Rose, he's like, just leave, you're done here, I don't need you here. And the girls
Yeah.
are like, we're pirates, fuck you, we're gonna blow your shit up. And they start coming back around, and the crew's like, uh, sir, Abel, the colonel, the bitches, they coming back, baby. These girls, they're gonna kick our booties, but they so sexy. Oh no, what we gonna do?
What are we gonna do? Whatever shall we do?
And the real captain's like, oh, okay, let's load up the cannons. And Abel's just like, no, no, just load up the
The
other one,
one. Yeah.
the big one. And he's like, that's a lot. Like he warns Abel. He's like, that's overkill. That's
It's
probably gonna be really bad. Um, and
and Abel just does not give a fuck. He just like cold-blooded, stone cold-hearted, just is like, do it. Do the thing. And oh my god.
yeah, that second of like the animation, like watching the cannon come out. Like one of the pirates sees it first, right? She's like, "What is that? I've never seen a cannon like that
Mhm.
before." It shoots back to the cannon. It's like pulling in all this energy before it shoots, right? Like pulling in
Mhm.
this power to shoot. It shoots and just fucking decimates this pirate ship. Like
Yeah.
guts it all the way through the middle. And it's like it's terrifying. It's dark, it's feral. It's
Mhm.
Abel's like, I'm not messing with you. I've gotten what I wanted out of you. You're nothing to me afterwards.
Yeah, and his like the decision that he made to do that, one, just like how nonchalant he was about it.
I I mean it
For
just
me, it
yeah,
seemed like he was very nonchalant, just like just yeah, wipe them out. We don't need them. Like they can die now.
yeah. It
That is like, ooh,
it feels heartless.
yeah,
It's
super
it's
heartless.
really dark. It's really that he has no like fear of like giving up human life. He has one thing in
Yeah.
mind and doesn't care what it takes for him to get to what he needs to do.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why I find him so interesting. That's why I think he's like the most interesting character, cuz like he loved this woman, and his love for that woman, like, that drives everything that he does, cuz he wants to see her again.
mm,
And yeah, nothing's gonna stop him from being able to see her. I don't know, it's so weird because it's like he's okay. He's just okay killing for the one that he loves, essentially. But it's like you can tell that he loves her so much at the same time. And like there's a scene where, because he has this painting, this beautiful painting, oil painting that he made of Helena. And like there's this scene where he's like sitting on the floor in his room and he's staring at the painting and he breaks down crying. But he has to stop crying because somebody knocks at his door. And like that scene I really like a lot. And I don't know. I kind of like, I guess, felt a little bit connected to him in that sense, because like I'm a secret crier. I cry alone. So if somebody comes around and I'm feeling emotional, I have to bottle that shit up tight immediately. So like
mm,
him going from like breaking down, crying into almost a sob to immediately being silent when somebody knocks at his door. It was like, ooh, I understand that.
I feel that feel, bro.
Yeah.
Keep crying those tears, bro. I feel it.
Yeah. So okay, so I was thinking about what I said,
Uh-huh.
um, and like I wanna mention, because like I was just talking about, I said how Abel, like how he cries alone in his room, right?
Hmm.
But like he I want to mention for the audience that this guy is like, he is traumatized. He's got he's traumatized, and I think he has like, I want to say maybe a little PTSD, because he had to watch Fena's mother be burned at the stake
Mm.
for her crimes. So like he had to watch her die, and she's like staring at him in the back in like the backflash, like a
Which
backflash in the
backflash.
flashback, flashback. And she's like smiling at him, and like hers is like it's like a like she like a I don't know what that smile was like. I understand, or like I don't know what, honestly, but like he's fucking traumatized. He loses the love of his life and he has to watch her be burned alive. So
Yeah.
like that makes for me that made the scene where he's alone crying on the floor a bit more impactful, because it like before he starts crying, he like has like this brief little flashback of flames and like eyes in flames.
Hmm.
Um and like he's breaking down, so like he's got like legitimate reasons for being upset, um and like reasons that make sense for why he's doing what he's doing. um and I think that's why he's kind of my favorite character, even though he's the bad guy.
I think on that same plane of thought though, you have to and this I mean ties a lot back into like how dark but also how smart some of the story pieces of this
Hmm.
series are, and that like um he's creepy the whole
Yeah. Hmm.
time. He's like creepy but not like in an overtly like I'm gonna get you kind of way, but like you don't the entire time you have no fucking idea what his plan is.
Yeah, you don't know what he wants or why he wants Fena. Like you don't really understand it very well, at least.
I feel like even in the end, you're not sure what he was after. I think sitting with it now after a bit of time, I'm like, okay, I understand now what he was coming for. But for the longest time, his actions made it seem like he was possessing Fena for his own selfish reasons, right? Like
Hmm.
he wanted her. He wanted that physical embodiment of Fena, and you don't realize until later that it was like
It's not Fena that he wants at all.
it's not Fena he's after, it's Helena that he's
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah.
And yeah, in that same breath, like right, he's a terrifying antagonist, and um you start to feel you may start to feel sympathy for him, finally understanding where he's at, because for the longest time you're like, oh, he was in love with her mother, but like she had the baby with Franz. So like, was he just a creep, right? Like there's
Mm,
always these hints at like what his backstory might be.
yeah.
There's this mystery constantly unraveling. And it's a story. His story is so closely intertwined with Fena's that it's like at
Yeah.
the same time you're trying to find out what Fena's like family story, what their voyage, what their legend is, right? And at the same
Mhm.
time that Fena's trying to figure it out, and then you see Abel and you're like, what's Abel's fucking problem? Because it's interesting too
Yeah.
to note that like Abel is designed to look so much like Fena,
Mhm.
and that he's very pale, he's quite beautiful, he has the blue eyes, and he has the really the blonde hair.
Yeah.
Um, and so you're like, okay, like there's some kind of relation. Um, you
Yeah, immediately when upon seeing him, I was like, "Is that her real father or something?"
right, yeah, like some sort of way I was like, oh, maybe it's the brother. Didn't realize how close I was to the
Yeah.
actual truth.
Yeah.
um but this whole time you just have this deep feeling that like he's going to hurt Fena, and like
Yeah.
he does in a way, because like she watches him kill or attack the pirate ship, right? And granted,
Mhm.
like, not that she was a big fan of the Rumble Roses anyway,
Yeah.
but like she sees that, and like she
It's
comes
terrifying.
it's terrifying for her. It ends up being triggering too for like the ship that her father was on going down, right? And
Mhm.
she starts to remember all of that fire, starts to remind her of like what happened. Um and she
Yeah.
has a panic attack, right? And then she gets saved by love of her life, the big old good samurai boy. and
Mhm.
Abel attacks him, right? Like
Mhm.
Abel tries so hard to be like, I am the good guy. I am here for you. I have your best interests at heart. Stay with me. Not realizing that like he's tricking her into staying with him for his own reasons. I don't even think
Mhm.
he gives a shit about Fena. He just knows that
No.
he needs her to accomplish what he wants.
Yeah.
Um, and then he continues to like traumatize her throughout it, right? So like there's you have sympathy for him and his plight, right? But then he uses that hurt and that loneliness and that like depravity to like hurt someone else and like
Mhm.
indirectly basically hurt the one thing that he's after in the first place.
Yeah.
He is so far gone, and like so kept to himself and so just like hung up on his one true desire
Mhm.
that like you're just like he just does whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
Um he and that's terrifying. Abel is gorgeous and like he's such a representation of like how how innocence can be so quickly taken away
Mm.
and how hatred and um blindness by that hatred can like overwhelm you and completely take away like the good of what you were of what like that was in the first place.
Yeah.
um yeah, Abel is a fantastic character. I think on in that same breath like it kind of because his story is so obvious, it makes it hard to understand or even really appreciate like what Fena is going through
Mm.
because their stories are so important to like rely on each other. Their stories
Mhm.
rely so heavily on each other. And Fena's because she is the epitome of innocence and love and goodness. It's constantly overshadowed by Abel's want to achieve that again.
Yeah.
And I can see where that like people are like, ah, this is whatever. I think that's one of the show's biggest downfalls is that like you have a titular character. You have the series is named after this character.
Yeah.
And while I think she's beautiful and wonderful and so sweet and so good, her antagonist completely overshadows what her story is about.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It really does.
and
Like
there
I didn't really care about what was going on for her.
mhm.
I cared more about Abel's.
I mean they were written to complement each other, but for some reason Fena's so easily gets swept under what
Yeah.
Abel's is. And maybe that's just our interpretation of it, right?
Yeah, that's there's that too.
But you know, and you see so much more of Fena too that like I guess that's what's supposed to be like, oh, this is her life.
Yeah.
This is the life that she has garnered from being resistant to like what was
Yeah.
expected of her. And um
Or
yeah.
for the amount of time, so like I in my mind right now I'm thinking about like the amount of time that Fena gets showcased versus the amount of time that Abel gets showcased for. Like Abel's character like background story and I guess development like it comes through so clearly
Mm,
whereas Fena's like she has all this time to have like some sort of character development or story build up for her or like yeah development with the other characters surrounding her but they don't utilize that
mhm.
super duper well for me compared
Mhm.
to how they did it for Abel. That's why Abel kind of takes over for me at least.
Yeah.
Cuz like Fena they get into the relationship that she has with Yukimaru and then a little like they barely get into like the relationship that she has with the rest of the crew. Like only one
Mhm.
other character on the crew like she really has a like relationship development with
Mhm.
um in terms of like being friends or being frenemies or being enemies and then being friends or something. I don't know. And like yeah, it doesn't get as deep
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. like the biggest issue, right? And it's funny too because I remember watching the first episode. I watched the intro sequence, and they were any anime opening like will show all of the important characters, some of the background
Hmm.
characters, right? You're always going to see them. You're like, I don't know who that is yet. I can't wait to figure
Yeah.
out who that is.
Yeah.
Um, when so Fena a background because we haven't talked about them at all. So Fena has um a crew. So she gets taken. The old men take her to this goblin island, and on the goblin island, it's like Japanese. It's Japan basically finds out that like one of like the families are like always intertwined or something. It's some like, oh yes, our destiny is to protect you. The priest gives her this stone that belonged to her father, and he's like, does this ring any bells? Like, what can you tell us about like this mission that your father was on, this voyage that he thought was worth taking you through, right?
And dying for.
And dying for. And she was like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, well, here's a ship, here's a crew of ninja samurai that we're gonna let you take, and have at it. So the ninja samurai are really cute. There's Karin. She's
It's so
this
cute.
little inventor who uses guns. She's a badass. There's Makaba. I kept wanting to call him Makobo.
Makaba,
It's
yeah.
Makaba, right? He's
Hmm.
the big quiet guy who's like
He talks slow.
he talks pretty slow and he uses explosives, but he like creates he makes he's a fletcher. He makes
Hmm.
bows and arrows and stuff. And then there's Shitan, who is the very sexy archer.
Woo woo.
Ooh, woo. And then there's the twins. I keep wanting to call him Ebby.
Shrimp. Enju.
Enju and Kaide. And they're just swordsmen and they're really fast and they bounce off of each other really well because they're twins.
Hmm.
And then there's Tsubaki, who is a fighter, but like he's mostly like captain, right? He like
Yeah.
he navigates, he makes up the game plan for a mission. He's the
Hmm.
cook and stuff. So yeah, and then there's Yukimaru, and Yukimaru, as a child, was like present on the ship that Fena's father died on, and so he presumably was there to protect her, right?
Hmm.
Because their families are intertwined, all of that stuff. So, of all of the things Fena forgets about that day because it's exceptionally traumatic, she remembers Yukimaru, right? She remembers what his eyes look like, and she always describes him as like, the man with black eyes, like, the boy that saved me or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so she has this gang of badasses around to protect her, and she I don't even remember what I was talking about when I started describing the boys. But those are her dudes, right? It's a huge band, not big, but it's a huge band of samurai dude. Oh, I remember now. It's a huge band of samurai dudes, and like they get introduced in the opening sequence, right? They're like, "Oh, we're in the woods, we're in the shadows. Like, look at us, we're so cool. Hiya, hiya, hiya." Um,
Yeah.
and you see these guys, and I remember when I was first watching it, I looked at them and I was like, "Uh-oh, they got fucking background character syndrome." And by
They-
that I mean that like they're distinct enough from each other that like yeah, you could recognize that this character is different from another, but they
Mhm.
also don't have a lot of details put into them that they're
No,
going to be a really big deal throughout the
that was
story.
yeah, and that was another hang up for me because like they made the crew for the Rumble Rose look super unique. Every character for on the Rumble Rose pirate ship looked very unique
Mm.
and different and interesting. And then they make these main side characters that like are always there in every episode look fucking bland. I was like, what? Why do they look so
I
bland?
know. In the end, I was very glad that at least of the Samurai 7 that I could distinguish who was who.
Yeah.
By the end of it, I was like, okay, great. I know who everyone is. I don't have great attachments to everybody, but I know who
Mhm.
everyone is, and
Yeah.
that's a triumph in my book. Fuck yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
honest like when Tsubaki was introduced, I was like, I'm not gonna remember who this guy is. I'm
I
not gonna
had
remember
no
his
idea what
name.
his name was until halfway through the series when I read it again.
They're not. You see so much. You see Fena spends so much time with these guys, and like, there's very obviously this sense of camaraderie and stuff,
Mhm.
but there isn't
They have a very
enough.
cute, like, family feel to them.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's so cute and that's so lighthearted and just so
Yeah.
sweet.
There's a lot
Um,
of heartwarming moments in the series.
mm,
That's just very like, "Ah, that's,
you guys are
cute.
cute. What the
Oh, it's
fuck?
adorable."
Cute? No, no. Um, and the biggest, I feel like the parts of Fena's story that have the most focus are like her relationship with Yukimaru. And even then, they aren't strong until the very end.
Mm,
And I
mhm.
think so like obviously like that's the one thing she remembers is Yukimaru, right? And she's like high key low key you could argue the whole time she's been in love with him. And like that's the premise you get, right? Where he's a samurai, so he's dark and mysterious and he doesn't talk very much.
Just dedicated to his purpose.
Of protecting her because it's
Yeah.
his dust, it's what he has to do.
One thing I do like about Yukimaru, that he says, I forget who he was talking to. He was talking to one of the other samurai people. It might have been to Shitan. Um, but he was explaining why he feels so obligated to protect Fena, and he was talking about the day um that the ship was attacked and he had to push because he was the one that pushes Fena out to sea alone on her boat, and he talks about he how he specifically remembered the look of despair and terror on her face, and how that was like burned into his mind's eye, and how he hated like seeing her look so distraught and being pushed out into the fucking dark ocean, and how he never ever wanted to do that to her ever again, and that's why he is so determined to protect her.
Hmm.
um and that's what I really liked about Ikimaru. Like once he told that, I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. So his is a very like loyal protector kind of love, maybe romantic love, and they kind of show that a little bit towards the end.
Hmm.
But it's mostly just like a very protective um sort of overall friendship, at least.
Mm.
um is Yeah, just that.
Yeah, yeah, no, he's I that they give so much emphasis to the relationship between Yukimaru and Fena, and with good reason. I think that's one of the more important parts of her story, right? And
Yeah.
like again, in relation to Abel's story, Abel's is so obvious and outright, and you know kind of the premise of what's happening, and the mystery of not knowing all the details keeps pulling you along. With
Mhm.
Fena, um you're trying to find out where she comes from, right? And I think she's so caught up in like living in now because
Mhm.
her whole life that's what she's wanted, right? She's thrown away pretty much who she is, what little she knows of who she is, because it was so scary and it was so much for her, that like living in now is really important for her. And so it's hard to like feel for her in that regard, because you're like, well, if you're just going to throw away the mystery behind you, what makes me interested or invested in your story, right?
Yeah.
Um we end up finding out that like her existence is like her existence means more than who she is.
Yeah.
Um and that's I think I don't know. It's such an interesting premise.
Yeah.
Um that I think it would need more time to for you to sit down with. Again, like I guess I would even argue that Fena's kind of a vanilla character, right? She's really cute and she's funny and like kind of a babbling little mess of a girl. Um, but she's really sweet and she cares a lot about the people on her team and she's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to have fun and I'm going to solve this mystery for other people." Um, and she finds out a lot about herself and like she's never really given the time or a spotlight to like figure out who she is, because again there are points in like Fena's story where really big discoveries are made and you're like, oh shit, like what does that mean? That's really cool. Instead of letting like Fena figure it out or like sit with it, be like, oh, what does this mean? We kind of just like switch to Abel and Abel's like, oh yes, this. And you're like, what? Like as an example, right? Again, she has the first clue she has is this stone. Um, and so they find another stone that's similar to it, and they haggle with the seller of the other stone to find out more information about it. He sends them to this island of Germany where these people manufacture this kind of thing, and they find this old dude that's been around for a long while, and he has archives that say, "Oh yeah, this piece would have come from this order." And you're like, "Sick! Thanks for keeping your computers updated, bros." And it's signed by Joan of Arc, or at least it's signed as like the nickname for Joan of Arc, right? And you're like, so she's what, a descendant of Joan of Arc? You're like, okay, that's cool. Um, uh, okay, what? So what? What else is there? Like,
It's like, what does Joan of Arc have to do with this? And
how?
also, it was like signed after she supposedly died.
Yeah,
Like,
after she'd
what?
already passed
Weird
away.
mystery. What?
Like, Fena, how do you feel about it? And she's like,
I
wow.
don't know.
And then she's like, I remember, I think I either called someone that or at one point, or like someone used to call me that. And then it's Abel, and he's like,
La Pucelle,
La Pucelle. And you're like, okay.
which means the maiden.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
and
in the grand scheme of things, it makes sense now. But like at the time, you're
yeah,
like, what?
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And I looked it up also because I just looked up Joan of Arc like a little bit, and because she was referred to La Pucelle as the maiden, just as like a holy virgin, pretty
Hmm.
much. And Fena, like the whole you kind of understand like, oh, okay, Joan of Arc is a holy virgin. Fena is also a holy virgin. Like she has been able to hold on to her virginity and escape with that. And she's on this like weird mission that kind of you don't really know, but like you know a you know from episode 1 that she has to get to this place called Eden, which is like, oh, that's like kind of biblical or whatever. Just like what's going on?
Virgins.
It's like some weird mystery shit. It's happening. What's happening?
Yeah.
But
I feel like this episode's gonna we're probably not gonna talk too much about. I don't know. I feel like we're trying to figure out what the story is about, and that's okay. This is just gonna be a slightly different kind of episode.
yeah,
Full of
yeah,
spoilers.
yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
no, not sorry. This is an anime podcast. You should expect
Yeah,
spoilers.
yeah.
Suck a butt.
Suck a fart out my butt. Watch it. Watch the anime.
Watch the anime. The ending's really weird. The
It
ending
is.
the ending's really interesting.
It is. It is. Okay. So here's where I have another gripe.
Yes.
Like, okay. So like because okay. Spoiler. Fena's mom is like this holy maiden. And her specific mission is to give birth to Fena because Fena is going to be like the next the next holy maiden that's supposed to make a decision for like the world, essentially. Why did I start saying what I'm saying? Immediately, I just suddenly forgot why I started saying this. Wow. What is my brain doing?
It's something you have an issue with, how the
Oh,
ending is.
yes.
I got
Okay.
you.
So like, okay. So the end of the series, like Fena has to make a choice basically to like destroy the world and start it over from the beginning, and be like and have like an Adam and Eve scenario on the fucking arc. um or she could just let the world continue to go on and she loses her memory, all of her memories, and has to start anew, but she doesn't become a baby or anything, she just loses all her memories. And I was just like, okay, like, because I thought in the series that her mom had to do what she did, like it like the ending episode, because like her mom's fucking spirit is there in Eden and she's all like, hey. I don't know, man. I don't know. I thought it was kind of weird. I was like, okay, so did Helena have to go through the exact same thing that Fena did, like by coming to Eden and making a decision?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's implied.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I figured that because like that's what I took it to be. And so the end, like, Fena makes her decision, like she lets the world continue being the world, and like her hair is brown all of a sudden.
Dark. It's dark when she comes back out.
And like, yeah, why is her hair like, I don't know, because in the flashbacks, Helena, like the only thing different about her was that her hair is cut short and it looks like exactly the same way that Fena cuts her hair in the first or second episode when she chops her hair off. And it's like, okay, well, Helena doesn't really look any different besides the fact that her hair is shorter.
Hmm.
Why did they turn Fena's hair brown? That's just like a tiny little like gripe that I have. I'm just like, I don't understand why this thing. Also, the ending, like, it was just kind of confusing because they didn't give it a lot of time to explain.
Hmm.
Like they explained it, but at the same time it's like, why though? I don't understand.
So a lot of what I'm about to respond with is, for the most part, speculation on my part.
Okay. Okay.
But also, I don't, well, aside from in my personal life when I speculate on anxiety alone, but in this instance, I think most of my speculations come from little tiny clues that
Mm,
I get from the show. What
okay.
what I believe occurred was uh, Franz took Franz for some reason has the understanding that Eden exists.
Hmm.
I Franz I is well, Franz we also see is like one of the spirits of Eden, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So like whether Franz was a real person is not quite clear. For some reason he has some kind of ability to exist outside of Eden. Um but we know Franz met Helena, and we
Hmm.
know Franz and Helena eloped, right? And we know that
But
Franz.
like not as lovers.
No, 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 no. So in that time, Franz shared with Helena that she was the maiden
Mm.
of
Hmm.
that generation, right? And was like, "You need to come with me. We need to go on this journey." So I think Franz has been to Eden before. If Franz wasn't, if Franz was a real person, he knew about Eden. And maybe that part of that story is true, that like the Hoteman family like knows
Has
of Eden, has
okay.
clues that will lead them to Eden. Because another thing that's really confusing is that the coordinates, they find Fena finds the coordinates for a
Mm.
place that they're like, oh, this is Eden. But the Rumble Rose calls it El Dorado.
Yeah.
And Eden ends up being like a a different part of this mysterious island that can only be found with Fena aboard and the stone or whatever.
Hmm.
So El Dorado and Eden coexist, right? So that's what we come to understand. Like, why do these same places have different names? You're like, oh, it is one place. And there is the earthly part of El Dorado, which any human could find. But as Abel keeps saying, like you have a calling to come to find Eden.
Hmm.
And so he takes that very seriously, and he considers everything the island, the abandoned city, the hidden treasure to be a part of Eden and sacred and untouchable.
Hmm.
Um, and so if just from a specific timeline, right? Franz knows about Eden or El Dorado, those interchangeably. He knows about that place, right? He knows about Eden. And he knows that Helena is the only way for him to access Eden. And this is speaking as Franz as the person, right? As a man. Before we know anything, before we meet this spirit person that appears to Fena when she finally gets to Eden. So if Franz is a dude with a family who has the clues to get to Eden slash El Dorado, he finds out that he needs the maiden, right? The chosen maiden. Maybe he follows the bloodline from Joan of Arc and is like, oh, Joan of Arc, has always been seen as like this powerful maiden warrior, right? The Great Virgin. But she has descendants, right? She has people that come from her blood. Okay, who is this? Okay, it's Helena, right? Helena becomes pregnant before she leaves. There's an insinuation that she becomes pregnant before she runs away and quote unquote elopes with Franz.
Yeah.
Because in a flashback, Abel sees her and she's holding her stomach. And
Hmm.
then Franz appears and he calls out to her and she sees him, but she continues to walk away with Franz, right? The
Yeah, but
servants,
she doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't look happy to be walking away with him, though.
because she understands that she's giving herself up to go to Eden.
Yeah.
She also understands that once she comes back, if she were to come back, right, if she doesn't pass away in Eden, if she doesn't die in Eden, coming back means certain death. Her leaving at all means certain death, but to
Yeah.
return means that she's dying as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, if
Why did she come back though?
I think there's no doubt in my mind that Helena makes it to Eden with
Yeah.
Franz
Yeah.
because she appears in Eden. Um,
Mhm.
but I think what is important to remember is that they are looking for a maiden who is presumably a virgin.
Mhm.
Helena is not that.
No.
In fact, she
She
is pregnant when she presumably gets to Eden.
Yeah.
If Fena hasn't already been born by the time the ship makes it to Eden.
Yeah.
Um, so she gets there, whatever she brings Franz to Eden, what have you. Um, and is she provided with the same choice? From the way that the spirits talk about it, it seems like each generation of maiden is given this choice.
Mhm.
And I think that um, Helena isn't given the choice,
Because
or
she's not a holy maiden.
yeah,
She's not a holy virgin.
she's not a holy virgin. And when she does return, the only time we see her, aside from when she's burned at the stake, is like when she sees Abel,
Yeah,
right?
she's
And
locked in a cell.
Abel asks her all these questions like, where were you? I loved you. And she just gives him a really cryptic like, we'll be together again or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
she accepts her fate. She gets burned at the stake. And dies, supposedly dies that way, though her spirit, I would argue, is left in Eden.
Mhm.
So I mean, in that regard, you could even argue that like she doesn't have her memories, but like something brings her back to the kingdom, or maybe
Mhm.
even the spirits of Eden send her back to Eden. or spirits of Eden sent her back to the kingdom. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
But yeah, like why would she go? Why would Franz risk coming, like taking her back to the kingdom
Yeah.
and give up Fena, right? Like he has to protect Fena in some way. And so
Yeah.
like we don't know what's happened to Helena. If anything, it seems like Helena has suffered the most tragedy. Is like
Eh,
she is
yeah.
forced to have this child, right? She makes her way to Eden. Maybe that's even it, right? That like Franz knows that Helena is of the bloodline, but um in some way, shape, or form, she won't be an acceptable she won't be an acceptable candidate to Eden, right? And so it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we need to build this now. Uh the maiden must be the child of a king for some reason. That line is thrown around
Yeah.
somewhere, but there's
I
no
remember that.
explanation for it.
Yeah.
And so he tells her that she has to seduce the king. And I'm sure that's heartbreaking for her because
Mhm.
you finally know that yes, she did love Abel.
Yeah.
And she had to sleep with his father. So like
Yeah.
that's terrible, that's hard. And then even then she has to, give up her daughter. I think too that like if Helena had chosen if Helena was given that choice, being a holy virgin or not, some sort of wire would be crossed. But I also think that she would have wished for the world to continue, right? There's
Mhm.
there's the choice of what is it, white clouds or dark storms,
Like blue water
blue water.
or storm. Yeah, storm clouds.
Mm-hmm. Something that like is a question that Fina keeps dreaming about that keeps popping up for some reason.
Yeah.
Which ultimately you find out is related to the choice she has to make in Eden.
Mhm.
So if Helena does make the choice, I would presume that she chooses to let life continue, or she has it restart, but it's not restarting in the way that we would think.
Mm.
That like it sends her back, like the child is born, it sends her back to the kingdom or whatever. Like I don't know. Obviously, all up to interpretation. Yes, this
Yeah.
is a very confusing. It's very weird. But then I also think it gives a lot of space to theorize, and that's something I love is like trying to suss things out. I'm like, wow,
I
what
do
happened?
like series that leave things a little more open for you to just come up with your own theories.
Yeah,
That is a fun thing.
yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
It's this one's a fucking buck wild. This is a weird
it's so weird.
story.
Yeah. But it really is interesting. And yeah, like Fena's story might seem a little washed out compared to like how they write Abel's character, but it's still a good series.
Mhm. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest things that like draw me to it, aside from the fact that I can go ham on just like all of these weird harebrained fucking theories, conspiracy theories about
Mhm.
what this means about the fate of the world relying on a fucking single maiden, like
Yeah.
down the line, go go go. Is just that like with all of the like the spookiness but also the super lightheartedness is like it makes me feel like I'm on an adventure.
And that's the show. Like the show is an adventure. It's this
Yeah.
girl going on an adventure trying to figure out like who is she? Who is
Who
she? What is her family?
who are you, girl?
Who am I?
Who are you, girl? Yeah,
Who
it's
are you?
who are you? Yeah, Eden's a weird part of the series. Uh
Yeah,
it's
really cool
fascinating.
though.
I think something I was thinking about too was like anytime there's a Japanese anime, and I must preface that with Japanese anime. Any Japanese anime with any sort of like Christian themes in it, I always take with a grain of salt because one of the biggest uh series that has a lot of pulls of like
Oh yes. Oh
Christianity
yes.
is Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Evangelion.
And the background with that is that the creators were like, that looks pretty cool. I'm going to put that in the anime.
Yeah. And also, like, supposedly the creator of Evangelion hated otaku, and
Mhm.
he wrote the characters the way that they're written because he wanted it to be like a fuck you, fans, but
Yeah.
just made the characters more likable because they were actually flawed people.
There were superhuman
Yeah.
depictions. Yeah.
So it backfired the way that he wanted it to, which
Oh,
is fucking hilarious.
he's fucking rolling in it now, so I mean, or at least
Yeah.
he should be. I hope he is.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, man. So like, yeah, going into like Eden and like the Holy Virgin stuff, I was like, I I like the use of that because the way that I interpreted this, especially when it was talking about like each woman's goal is to make the choice and then to continue your lineage,
Mm.
to continue to make this choice. It felt like it felt to me like it was a God or some type of higher power coming back to Eve and like apologizing for making her the first bad guy.
Oh.
Because I mean all of that symbolism, right? The Garden of Eden, um it's a spiritual plane of existence. It doesn't quite exist on the world as far as we know it.
Hmm.
And this maiden, that is her destiny, that is where she comes from, is Eden. She comes from Eden. She must return to Eden. That is her goal, to return to Eden. And like once she's there, she's given such a heavy task that like, what do you mean? Like it should floor somebody. Like what do you
Yeah.
mean I get to decide if the world continues on or if it restarts? Like
And they literally tell her like you can't not make a decision. You have to make a choice.
and she tells Yukimaru too, she tried really hard to think of an alternative and there wasn't one.
Mm.
And she was so heartbroken at the thought of forgetting him,
Forgetting him,
right?
yeah.
Forgetting the love that she has for him and forgetting her friends too. She was really scared about that.
Yeah.
Um, but I it all of that like open-endedness gives me room to say uh Eden stands Eden slash Eldorado stands as like the final frontier on Earth for humans.
Mm.
Though it is meant to be found, to be brought into existence by Eve, right?
Yeah.
By a direct descendant of Eve. And Eve, knowing what she knows, having the knowledge that she does, and a higher powers feeling guilty of the hurt that they have brought upon her, like giving her this choice. Like, okay, I I have cursed you, right? I have cursed you for not listening to me, right? You took the apple. Wasn't even really her fault. It was the fucking snake. But like,
Yeah.
I blamed you for this, um, knowing that you were my child and that you would know no better, and I punished you for that. And so I can never make that up for you, make that up to you, but as recompense, like think of your life, think of where you are, and like what you would do in my shoes at this point,
I like that because
right?
I like that you're telling me this because that's not something that I thought of at all.
And it's not something anyone can think of without the context of the Bible, right?
Yeah, and I don't know shit. I don't know shit about the Bible. Like I know about the Garden of Eden and that. I did read Genesis, but that was also a really long time ago, and I'm not religious, so it's not something that I would take to heart and remember
Yeah.
details of. Um, but like listening to you describe that and figure out how that is related to the series is interesting, and like hearing you talk about it in this way, it makes me like the series more than what I initially pegged it to be.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Woo!
It's not one of my favorites. I'm sorry. I know you
Oh
really, really
no.
like it, but
I would never fucking bully someone into thinking one of my favorites is their favorite. Absolutely. Like, feel your feels.
but I definitely do like it better after hearing you talk about it in that way.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me. But yeah.
Yeah. And like I only watched through the series once, and every other series that we've watched for Ahegals, I've watched the series twice just because of
Yeah,
happenstances,
same.
because I was like, I can't remember.
Yeah,
This one I've only watched once, and I knew nothing about it going in, so like
same.
I'm sure I could take that string of thought and pull it back through the series, and I think that would brighten my experience with Fena.
Mm.
And I would like to in the future. I'll probably rewatch it in a couple weeks or something and be like, yes, okay, I can better
Yeah.
see now, right? That like, I mean, even just off the top of my head right now, right? Like we meet Fena as this closed off child, right? She doesn't know much. She only knows like
Mhm.
survival. And once she's broken out, right, she's taken a bite of the apple, right? She knows what life can be, and it's fun and it's adventure and it's just being out in the world and loving people freely and doing what she wants. Um,
Yeah.
and then, the weight of the world falling on you again, right? It's not always good times. There's going to be a lot of shitty things that are completely out of your control.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, again, that my retelling of the ending is it's so far stretched from the actual physical story in front of us, but it enriches it for me, right? This blank
Yeah.
slate gives me so much growth and feeling, and I adore it. I love it a lot.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like hearing you talk about it in that way. It's
Oh,
nice.
I'm glad. I know
It's eye-opening.
I should study the Bible. I feel like I've been wanting to. I've been wanting to reread the Bible and like try to learn more
That's
about it.
cool.
Well, just because it's a story.
It is, yeah.
Just a collection of stories, right?
Mm.
You take away this huge world power that's associated with the Bible, and then you're like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of stories. Um,
Christians and Catholics that are very religious, please don't come after us.
no, I'm not shitting. I'm a raised Catholic too, but like, well, and I'm not shitting on religion, but I just as a storyteller, as a writer, I love stories, and like for that to
Mm.
be one of the first big stories, I'm like, I wanna know about it. Beowulf's a weird story. I've read Beowulf.
I
That's
have
a
not. I do not know
that's a
the
fun
story
one.
of Beowulf.
It's a weird one. It's good, but it's a weird one. Um, another thing. Have you totally off topic, kind of, sort of. Have you heard of Paradise Lost?
Yeah, but I don't know anything about it.
So Paradise Paradise Lost is, I think, an epic. It's not modern in any sense, but it's a modern epic in that it wasn't written in ancient Greece times. Um, by this dude who fucking, I can't even remember his name for some reason, but he loved the Bible. So it's basically Bible fan fiction. And so Paradise Lost is like a very in-depth look at the book of Genesis, right? And like
Okay.
what happened in Eden and that kind of thing. And so I think a lot of my analysis of this comes from what little I remember of studying Paradise Lost, because I took philosophy in college for my literature degree. But yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It's cool.
That's it. That is cool. I'll
Yeah,
have to
man.
share that with me sometime.
Pirate Princess.
Pirate Princess.
I parts I did not like besides what we've already spoken about. Let me get a drink of water really quick.
Yes. Yes. Lube your cords.
Parts I did not like. No nipples.
Oh shit, you're right.
No
Oh.
nipples. I hope my
Oh,
mother
I
hears me
love that
screaming no
you
nipples.
noticed that. I did not pay attention to that at
My
all.
eyes get glued to Samurai Man Booby in a second, in a fraction of a second. And I'm like, no
Oh my
nipples.
god. No
two
nip.
points marked off right off the bat.
Where's the nip knop?
Where is my nipple? Especially on
It's
Yukimaru.
Yeah.
It's like, give me nipple.
Where's the fucking nip, man?
Give me nipple, bro.
Bro.
And then not enough brulee, dude.
Oh, the dog?
The
Yeah.
dog. There's not enough dog.
I know. Yeah, he comes along like yeah, they show that the dog comes along and then it's like, okay, bye.
And then
Bye, dog.
he's vibing, he's around every once in a while. The voice actor for the fucking dog is very much a human trying to sound like a dog. So funny, dude. Oh, and my last issue. Why no keys?
Why no
Why no
keys?
keys?
Yeah, they don't get to kiss.
No keys?
No
Excuse me.
keys.
The
Let's
virgin
do the romance.
Yukimaru, the Chad Brule.
Virgin Yukimaru.
The virgin Yukimaru. Yeah, oh my god. I typically in a love story like Fena's and Yukimaru's, I typically would be pretty like perturbed that like nothing really happened. Like it was a really cute like pining for each other, but it also
Yeah.
wasn't as flavorful as I would like.
Yeah, and I think that lack of flavor is like what kind of made me a little bit confused about if it was actually a romance or not. Like was it just that she was embarrassed about his declaration for wanting to be by her side and protect her? Was it just embarrassment because like who says that? Or was it like, oh my gosh, like I like you, like you embarrassment?
I like you. I know any
I don't know.
I don't know.
It was just a little vague for me. Like I was like, okay, this is supposed to be romantic, right? Am I dumb?
No.
I was like, I feel dumb.
No, again, it was one of those like aspects that were there, but it was super vanilla and like got really washed out with other things.
Yeah.
I think the moment that like that flared up that passion in my chest of romance, of like any romance story I watch, I'm usually like, oh my god. Was in the moment where they're at El Dorado and Fena and Yukimaru walk away to like unlock the staircase to Eden. The way that Fena unlocks
Oh,
it
yes.
is she dances.
I love that
right?
scene.
She
I love that scene.
It's gorgeous. It's beautifully animated. The music. Oh god, I didn't even talk about the fucking music in this series is so good.
Yeah, like the opening song is really, really fucking good. The ending song is also good.
Dude, even just the like background music for like specific episodes is just it's rich and guttural and like it feels like being on the ocean. It's really cool. Just the vocals in these are just they're gorgeous and yes, the soundtrack for Fena is very good. I've already liked it on Spotify. Go check it out.
Oh, nice.
Fena Pirate Princess original soundtrack.
Oh my god.
But so that scene is gorgeous. And watching Fena dance is beautiful. But then it cuts to Yukimaru watching her. And I don't even know if you see his entire face. But like
you see the area around his eyes for sure.
You see his eyes and the way that his eyebrows just like twitch and dip and melt and you can see this like desire that you have never seen in this character's face throughout the entire series. You just see this deep like just this deep
emotion,
this deep attachment, this deep love, this deep appreciation and like just this conflicting need to like protect and like and be with, right? Just to like honest to God, that moment of animation just of Yukimaru's fucking face
It's good.
It portrays
Oh,
so much in such a little bit of time.
it
And
does.
it's animated and
It is.
ah
It's really well done.
it's such a good scene, and like I think that alone saved the entire romance subplot for me.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
It was so romantic in like such a subtle, quiet way. Like
Mm,
if you felt experienced love, I feel like you could see that and you could completely understand just like
yeah.
this rush of thoughts that's going through his head, Yukimaru's head. Oh,
That's a good that's your description of that scene is very just like on point.
thank you. I try.
You're
Oh,
great.
you're
Oh.
great.
You slander me so?
Fuck you. You're great.
Fuck you.
Dude. Yeah, that blip alone. I was just like, "Oh,
It's really, really, really well done.
it's
Yeah, like the animation is so good.
the animation's really good, absolutely."
Oh, and the whole series is really well animated. I like it a lot. That was like honestly, that's like one of my favorite parts about this anime is like
Mhm.
how well animated that it is. Just like ooh,
Yeah,
ooh, ooh.
running back to Abel, right? Like the way Abel is presented throughout the way he's animated that like his face is so stoic, but even like in him and they like make it really obvious like at the end he's like mean dude, right? Real scary. He's the bad guy. His eyes glow red, but I feel like
Yes.
even if they hadn't done that, I would be able to perceive like how lost and how broken he was
Yeah.
before he saw Helena again.
Cause like the way that they make his face look, the like it's not a lack of emotion on his face, but it's a very like tired, just kind of like almost soulless, tired, sad,
Yeah.
angry-ish. It's really hard to describe all of the emotion that's there. Like the dark circles under his eyes and how his eyes turn red. But he also is like he's a very like his eyebrows are very like frowny.
Mhm.
But the eyes by themselves are like beautiful sad.
Yeah, there's a lot there. That his expression in the end especially, but I pretty much throughout it just gets heavier as the series goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but his expression is like taut focus.
Yes.
He is so, I mean, like we've already described, he is so hell bent on getting what he wants.
Mm.
Which what he wants is to die and to be with Helena.
Yeah. And he fucking gets what he wants.
That's all he wanted was to die. But like very specifically, he was like, I can feel her here still. How does he
Yeah.
find out about Eden even?
I don't I don't know. I have
'Cause
no idea.
I mean that's interesting too, right? And maybe that's the whole thing, right? Is like why he was after Fena is like
Like, okay, so like his little boy servant is one of those spirit things.
Cody.
Cody, yeah, he's one of the Eden spirits. Just like Franz was. But like maybe Cody said something.
Maybe. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't know. Cause like, cause there's a scene where Fena's alone on Abel's ship, and she's sitting in a room, and she's sitting with Cody, and he
Mhm.
says something to her that's very like knowledgeable about what she's looking for, and it's like,
Yeah.
how do you know that? Why do you know that? How do you know that? I don't think Abel even has said anything like that. Why would you say that? But it gives Fena an idea of where she needs to go next, pretty much.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's like, huh. Yeah, it's just one of those things that was like a little mystery until you find out who that character is.
Yeah, absolutely. Ugh.
So, yeah.
We need a spin-off of the Rumble Rose's adventures.
Oh, I know. I want them to like because you see them come back, or you see some of the
Some of them
characters
are still
alive at
alive
the
at the
end.
end.
Yeah, it's like ooh, and I really want to see Grace O'Malley. That's the name of the captain. I just call her by her last name, O'Malley.
Right.
But like, I want to see her come back, and I want like, yeah, ooh, make another season where she's the new bad guy, and and she wants revenge on Fena for like stealing her man that she was boinking, and I don't know something. But
Uh,
Fena doesn't have any memories, so she's just fighting this pirate lady that wants to kill her for some reason that she doesn't understand.
I guess it's about time to wrap up, unless we have anything else striking to say.
Well, okay, so this was just one thing that was like my other hang up that I had about
Yes,
the show.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So Shiton
Yeah.
ends up at some point, he ends up at some point like disliking Fena
I
because
really
of because of some bullshit thing the priest told him. Um and he only dislikes her because of that thing that he was told by some other person. Um and I like it felt like it was just out of nowhere, like some weird, frivolous, like unrelated plot point. And it was like, I guess this is like character development for both of them and their friendship with each other, but in the end, it didn't matter. So why do this?
I yeah, it's funny. A little while ago I was like, man, I hope we don't talk about Shitan. I hope we just skip right over that whole fucking subplot.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
I do.
totally good. We should talk about it though.
I do like his bromance with Yukimaru though.
Yeah, of
Like
course.
that's his best friend. Like
Yeah.
he loves Yukimaru as his best friend. I like that part a lot. But I was just like, what point did this serve? This didn't this it felt very pointless
It
to have him be like, she's a witch.
it's too much for what it's supposed to accomplish.
Yeah.
'Cause like I at the beginning was like, "Oh, we're just adding another pretend bad guy onto this." Like I think by the time we realize Shitan is a bad guy, it we're still we're at an in between because like you see you're introduced to Abel and um O'Malley together because O'Malley, the Rumble Rose Pirates, are working for Abel and the ship that he has under his control. He's not the captain, but he
Yeah.
has the ship's working for him. Um, you see those two, and you're like, okay, those are two tier like in the classic trope of like multi-tiered antagonists of anime. You're like, okay, these are the bad guys, and you're like, oh, the Rumble Roses, they're really mean. They're pirates. They're bad bitches. Like scary. Um, and then they get those people get introduced. You're aware of them in the series, and then we get to a point where like Shitan's being kind of sneaky, and again, Shitan is one of those almost completely faceless side characters that is with Fena. And
Hmm.
granted, I think he's a good character. I wish they could all get fleshed out more, but you would need a longer
Yeah.
series for that.
Yeah.
Um, like suddenly he's like behind the scenes doing something, right? And like
Yeah.
you find out that I would argue that he's been brainwashed
Yeah.
into, keeping a closer eye on Fena and what she is. And like that, I think intrinsically comes back into like how Fena's the mystery of who Fena is like can be interpreted,
Mm.
right? Because as far as the Goblin Island village is concerned, like they think Fena um, comes from a family that is directly responsible for um, taking away an heirloom of theirs, right? Uh, whether that's the case or not, we don't know. I don't think we could ever know because again, we don't know anything about Franz himself,
Yeah.
Franz Hodeman, which is where Fena gets her
Houtman.
name. That's not even her biological father, right? Like, but
Yeah.
she has that name, so she just happens to be associated with that. I think it like I think that subplot of like, uh-oh, Shitan's also a bad guy, like is trying to like muck the waters. It's trying to make the reveal of Abel being the real bad guy more interesting when it didn't fucking need
Yeah.
that in the first
No,
place.
it really didn't.
It didn't need that. But then it also tries to like it also tries to give more depth into what Fena is doing.
Yeah.
And again, it's so much of what happens directly around Fena is like so mushy. There's too much.
Yeah. And so there's adding to like the too much, which also kind of added to some confusion for me for what was going on in the show. They mention a character that I thought was going to be like another like main bad guy
Mm.
that would show up that doesn't end up showing up at all. So they mention a character named Kay who is
Oh.
like the Seven Samurais like trainer, essentially, like the sword master trainer. He trained them in like how to do like all of their like fighting skills and abilities. And
Mhm.
he's like portrayed as this really scary person who's like super duper strong that like can beat even Yukimaru, and Yukimaru is like the strongest of the seven samurai. Um but then it's like, oh, maybe Yukimaru is like strong enough to beat Kei now. And they mention that Kei is on his way to fetch the seven samurai and like bring them back home,
Mhm.
and everybody looks scared at like the thought of his arrival, and it's like, okay, that's interesting. um and they make him out to seem like this really scary person, and then he just never shows up. So it's like, what?
I guess yeah, that was really fucking shitty. Well, I get they can't. He can't show up if they move the ship away from where they say they are, right? So
Yeah.
on a basic level, that's what happens.
Yeah,
Um,
that is what happens, but it's also just like, what the, like, why did you even talk about this character?
no, exactly. I mean, like that's what makes Shitan's like. Oh, Shitan's a small bad guy compared to like Kay, and like Kay's the big bad
Yeah.
guy, and it like all of that was unnecessary. If
Yeah, they
I,
could have used they could have used the time that they put to make that. Like that was like a full episode
yeah,
basically, like an episode and a half.
yeah.
They could have used that time to like go into more detail about other important things that were actually relevant, and like have it make some more sense, I guess, or feel more impactful.
Yeah, I mean, they had enough, like, without having to give, like, the backstory as to why Shitan was, like, believed that Fena was a bad influence. Like, they
Yeah.
didn't need to introduce Kay at
No,
all.
they
He
didn't.
he comes in at the end and it's like, oh, he's very proud of you guys because you did it. You brought the thing. You did the thing. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's just like, okay.
Um, yeah, yeah. It was too much. It's too heavy. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Eh.
still a good series.
Still good. There's
Still good.
uh
Still good.
it's funny because there's so little to go off of in this series, but then there's also so fucking much.
Yeah.
It's weird, and like my only advice for watching this show, cuz I do recommend it. I fucking love it,
Yeah.
is just to be there for the adventure part. And not to be like, don't hate on it. Hate on it if you need to, please. Because you should tell the director, "Hey man, what the fuck? You had so much good here, and then you just like
Yeah.
shat in the pan. What's going on over here?"
But overall, it is a really enjoyable, light-hearted series.
Mhm.
I did like it. I did enjoy it. As much as I might seem like I'm shitting on it and having like some gripes with some of the details. Like these are all of my gripes, they're just things that I noticed while watching the series, and it's only stuff it only like makes me think about it like after the fact,
Oh,
honestly.
yeah.
It doesn't bother me while I'm watching it. It's not
Yeah.
one of those things that takes away from the enjoyment of like what is being presented in front of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just an after I've seen the whole thing, that like I think about all this stuff that's just like, this could have been like, they could have done more with this stuff, or this was unnecessary and could have replaced it with something that was better. But overall, it's still really good.
Really good. I know. I no, I'm exactly in the same boat too, because I sat with it, and like I had said at the beginning, is like there was this dark undertone that I loved. I was
Mhm.
enamored. Excuse me, dog. I was enamored with. Oh my God, Layla. Okay, mother has pacified the child a little bit. Um, I was enamored with this like dark undertone. I love dark themed things without being explicitly like horror, although I love horror too, but I love the duality of like lightheartedness and like adventure and
Mhm.
good, but then oh shit, bad things happen too. Like I just oh, it's just so real to life and I love that kind of mixture.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, I wish there was more of that. I wish there was a little more romance. There's a lot of things I wish, like Layla. That I wished that there was. I wish there were a lot more things, but I'm also glad there aren't a lot more things because there's already too much fucking shit in this.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
I but yeah, I've already made my case. I am so moist for Fena. I am so moist. I am basically in the ocean.
uh what's your Ahegal meter at?
It is like so Ahegals right now that like I can't see, I can't speak, toes curled, white knuckle gripping the sheets. It's a
Oh
good
my
time.
god.
We had to get nasty somewhere. This was such a serious discussion episode.
Yeah. Oh, good ending. Good way to end the podcast. Yeah.
There's pretty much only like three boys to choose from, but who is your boy?
Yum, 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 yum. Well, there were a lot more than 3 boys.
No, but only three are worth.
Okay. Yukimaru, Abel, and who's the third for you?
I guess Shitan,
Yeah.
you know what? Shitan lost all appeal for me when he was
Yeah.
like, I'm a bad guy. I was like, all right, listen.
Yeah, he also lost appeal for me because,
So
like, when he was like the pretty playboy kind of guy, I was like,
I was like, oh
yeah,
yes, ooh yeah.
yeah, hey,
So Brule would be the third guy.
that dog. Well, I ain't no fucking furry, so.
That's not what I meant. Oh no! Oh no! I can't take it back. It's out there.
I like Abel. He had a good he just his was a strong story. Although I love Yukimaru's dedication, and that's what I would really want in a partner. But Abel just for like the fantasy. Ooh.
Ooh, ooh. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know. Yukimaru's got a spot in my heart. The eyebrows.
Yeah.
If your eyebrows can portray even a fraction of that kind of emotion, I'm done. I'm fucking roasted. Put me on a spit, dude. I'm dead. I'm all yours. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. Without trying not to say too much about it, there are so many parts. Like even just talking about Yukimaru right now, like there are so many pieces of this that I expected one thing at the beginning and came out at the end completely like turned upside down.
Yeah.
It's such a strange. It's such a strange series in that like all of the expectations I had, all of the tropes I thought I was seeing were completely turned on their head, and I was like, oh, okay.
Good.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Well, yeah.
interesting. Well, fuck.
Yeah.
I hope that wasn't too crazy of an episode.
I hope so too. That might have been That might be, yeah, this podcast might be really confusing for how the order in which we talked about things. It was severely all over the place. I apologize for that.
No,
That's my fault.
well, I'll take that into editing too. Like, I'll try to.
Okay.
I have been trying to stay away from like bunching to just moving pieces of our conversation to like make more sense, right?
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? Every episode or every couple of episodes that we may need more finagling. Who knows?
Finagle.
Finagle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that was a good sesh.
Yeah. It's good shit, dude. We hope you enjoyed this very kind of off the cuff. Not that our series isn't off the cuff anyway. I hope you enjoyed this deep, serious discussion
about a very lighthearted series.
But yeah, fucking. Thank you guys for joining us, Renee.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your fucking. I'm so fucking glad we had this. Me head over heels in love with it. You just like, what the fuck is this shit? Oh,
what is this? What's going on? I don't understand. Why did you make this choice? Grumpy old man.
Yes, thank you for this episode. This was a very fun one.
Yes.
Everyone prepare for a Samurai Champloo next time.
Hell yeah.
I'm sure it's gonna be the same. I'm sure we're really gonna be talking about that series.
Yeah. And go watch Fena Pirate Princess. Let us know your thoughts. Like, what did you take away? What were your big hangups? What did you like about the show? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Reach out.
Let us know on our Twitter.
On Twitter, absolutely.
Ahegals.
YouTube at Modesty, MUADESTEA. That's my handle. If you can't find Ahegals anywhere, you can find me anywhere, and I will relay this information to Renee. Renee's handles.
I have none.
Renee is an enigma of the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, watch Fena Princess. Let us know what you thought. If you have any recommendations.
Yes, recommendations. Because we're gonna be watching anime after anime after anime.
Anime all the time.
Anime.
Baby.
Let us know what you want us to talk about the most.
We'll blab on about it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. We hope you have a great day.
Yes.
Yes.
Stay safe and stay healthy.
Yes. Goodbye.
Bye.